so excited to be back to teach you some more about the salmon life cycle. Last week, you learned about smolt, those salmon teenagers who travel all the way down their stream out to the ocean, and the pollution that they can encounter that changes the quality of the water on the way. Do you remember some of the things that we can measure to figure out whether a stream has healthy water for salmon? Some things we measured are pH, phosphate, turbidity, temperature, and dissolved oxygen. As smolts migrate to the ocean, they mature into adults, and that's the life stage we're going to talk about today. Adult salmon can travel hundreds or even thousands of miles during the 2 to 5 years they spend in the ocean, all the way up the coast of Alaska, or even as far as Japan. Depending on the species, they can grow anywhere from 2.5 feet to 5 feet long. That's almost as tall as me. They're mostly silver in color, and they have a specialized form of camouflage called countershading. Animals with countershading are a lighter shade on their bellies and a darker shade on their backs. How do you think that might help them camouflage? For salmon and other marine creatures, this hides them from predators and prey above and below. So if a predator is looking down on a salmon from above, all they're going to see is that dark back, which blends in with the darkness of the ocean around them, so they won't be able to see the salmon very well. If a predator is looking up from below, they're going to see that salmon's light belly, and it's going to blend in with the light coming down from the sky up above. Can you think of any other animals that have countershading? Some examples are seagulls, penguins, other fish, sharks, even whales. So usually things that fly or swim have some form of countershading. And it can help them hunt too, because just like their predators can't see them coming, neither can their prey. As adults in the ocean, salmon eat smaller fish and marine invertebrates like krill. But they also have predators of their own. Some major predators of salmon are seals, sea lions, and bigger fish too. One really important predator of salmon around here is orcas, and in Puget Sound we have a really special population of orcas called the southern resident orcas. The southern resident orcas live off the coast of Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia in Canada. And unlike other orcapods that eat marine mammals like seals and otters, these orcas almost only eat salmon. They spend most of the year eating Chinook salmon, but they'll also eat chum and coho when they're around too. Humans also rely on salmon in the Pacific Northwest. Salmon are an important part of the cultures of many of the indigenous peoples of this region, appearing frequently in art and stories. The native people of the Northwest also have important salmon fisheries for food, which they've used and maintained since time immemorial and continue to do so today. Since European settlement, salmon have also been an important part of the economies of the towns, communities, and states along the Pacific coast. Have you ever eaten salmon? Do you know anyone who fishes for salmon? Then you rely on salmon too. The problem is, salmon are declining. Of the 400 salmon runs in the Northwest, 106 have disappeared completely, and 214 more are classified as endangered. Populations from all 6 species of salmon face major threats. And as a result, the organisms that rely on salmon for food are struggling too. There are currently only 73 southern resident orcas, and of the 14 babies born in the last 7 years, only 7 have survived, so 1 baby per year. There are a lot of reasons that our southern resident orcas are struggling, but one of the biggest is the depletion of their major food source, Chinook salmon. Over 40% of historic Chinook salmon runs have disappeared, and the remaining ones are mostly classified as threatened or endangered. This affects people too. Indigenous nations are struggling to find enough salmon to fulfill their treaty fishing rights, honor their cultures, and feed their people. And commercial Pacific salmon fisheries are feeling the decline as well. So why are salmon disappearing? There are a lot of reasons that salmon are declining, and one is habitat loss. Do you remember all the different habitat characteristics that we've talked about in these videos that make streams healthy for salmon? Can you name a couple? Salmon need a curvy stream with cobbles and gravels on the bottom and lots of native plants growing in the riparian zone along the banks. They need the water to be cold, clean, and clear with plenty of dissolved oxygen and a neutral pH. And they need to have plenty of macroinvertebrates to eat. When any of these things are missing, a habitat might not be usable for salmon anymore. And as human populations grow, irresponsible development can damage salmon habitat too. When we build in the riparian zone, we lose all of that important shade, woody debris, and erosion prevention that those native riparian plants provide. When we build dams in a stream, we block the smolt from traveling downstream and the spawners from traveling back up. Some dams have something really cool called fish ladders, which are like a series of stepped pools that help the salmon climb the dam one step at a time by jumping from pool to pool to pool. But they take a lot of energy, and the salmon might not make it to the top. When we build roads across streams, we often put culverts or pipes underneath the road so that the stream can continue flowing. But a lot of the time, those pipes are too narrow or too high, and so the salmon can't jump high enough to get in, or the current's too strong for them to swim against, and it blocks their passage. Overfishing is also a problem for salmon populations, and that's going to be the topic of this week's activity. Overfishing is when people fish out more salmon than the population can replace, and so the salmon population gets smaller and smaller and smaller. One positive alternative to overfishing is sustainable fishing, when we only take as much as can be replaced in the population. And we're going to experiment with that to figure out how to sustainably fish a population in our activity this week. We're going to play a game to see if we can figure out how to sustainably fish from a population. For this game, you're going to need a bag of popped popcorn, or whatever similar sized snack food you have around. Small crumpled balls of paper would also work. 1 plate per player. 1 cup per player. 1 spoon per player. A timer. I'm going to use my phone. 1 fishing log per player. And something to write with. Links to the instructions for the game and the fishing log template, so the instructions for how to make this guy, are posted in the video description. Put 40 pieces of popcorn on each player's plate. The plate is your ocean, and the popcorn is your fish. Players have 30 seconds to move popcorn from the plate to the cup, which is your fishing boat, using only the spoon. At the end of 30 seconds, record the number of fish you caught, the number of bycatch, any popcorn that you dropped between the plates and the cup, and the total fish left in the ocean. And that's the end of your first fishing season. So I would count my bycatch first, and in a real fishing situation, these would be fish of the species that you didn't mean to catch. So maybe you were trying to catch salmon and you caught pollock instead, or you caught squid instead, or there are other animals that you caught by accident, like sea turtles. So I'm counting my bycatch first. And I have 5 pieces of bycatch. And so, under bycatch, I'm going to write 5. Then I'm going to count my catch. And I caught 25 fish. So under target fish, I'll put 25. And you can leave all of your popcorn back in your original bowl so you can use it again later, or you can just eat it. And then for the fish left in the ocean, you can either count how many fish are left, or you can just do the math. And so since I know I started with 40 fish, and I caught 30, 25 plus 5, that means I have 10 left. For your next fishing season, add one more piece of popcorn to your plate for every fish that remains. I have 10 fish left, and so I'm adding 10 more. And that's to mimic reproduction in the population. Then catch fish for 30 seconds again, and again record your catch, your bycatch, and the number of fish left. Then reproduce your fish again for round 3. In round 3, try fishing with 2 spoons. How does that change your fishing rate or your bycatch? Continue playing for a total of 6 rounds or until you run out of fish. How could you make your fishery more sustainable so that you won't run out of fish? Try experimenting by taking more or fewer fish each round to see if you can find a number where your population in the ocean stays stable or even grows from one round to the next. Or try using other fishing gear, like chopsticks. Or try fishing with your non-dominant hand. How do those affect your ability to catch fish and the speed at which you're catching them? My favorite part of this game is that you get to eat the fish you catch. Remember, the instructions for the game and the template for the fishing log are linked in the video description. What solutions did you come up with to make sure that you were fishing your population sustainably? Share your solutions with us by emailing them to education@mtsgreenway.org, and we'll share some of them on our Facebook page. Don't forget to come back next week to learn about the final stage of the salmon life cycle, spawners. Until then, have a good week.